The Medicine Wheel in 12 Steps. In addition to continuing to do the fire starter training in the communities, this is the training that we'll be offering at Wellbriety Training Institute. For those of you who would choose to come here for the training, you will have the men in recovery, or to work with women in recovery, or adult children of alcoholics. This isn't a cultural approach for healing. What you will learn here is how to facilitate a video series, so when you go back home you can run groups, to learn how the 12-step process works and how do you add your own individual tribal culture to it, how to process group discussions, how to conduct talking circles, and you'll have a workbook and facilitator manuals. This is what will be included in the kit when you come here to the Wellbriety Training Institute. You will be given either a men's or a woman's DVD set. You'll be given 2 participant workbooks, one so that you can take notes while you're in a training, and the other that you'll have when you go back home. There's also a facilitator manual. You'll be given a copy of the Red Road to Wellbriety book. You also will be given the Alcohol Problems in Native American. This is the story about the history of alcoholism in Indian country from an Indian view. And then also one of our book is called Understanding Native Culture. So this is the kit that you will have, that you will get when you come to the Training Institute. This Medicine Wheel 12 Steps can be used for healing from alcohol abuse, drug abuse, from meth, prescription drugs, domestic violence. And by the way, there's also a Medicine Wheel 12 Steps for youth. We have one for boys and one for girls. Currently, the Medicine Wheel 12 Steps is being used in hundreds and hundreds of places across the United States for people who are involved in the healing of Native people. It's being used in treatment centers, prisons, reentry, court systems, inpatient, outpatient. Some just are starting recovery groups in the communities, and also being used in behavioral and mental health organizations. Who should attend would be Native people who are working in the field of treatment and recovery and wellness organizations, or non-natives, and that's from the red, yellow, black, and white, who might be working in Native communities, for professionals, counselors, therapists, recovery people. We also have arranged that CEUs can be provided. But what is the Medicine Wheel in 12 Steps? A long time ago, where we Native people got our knowledge was from the earth. In each tribe, the earth taught them different ways of doing it. That's why we're all different. But the thing that we had in common is we knew there was a world you could see and a world you could not see, and that those 2 worlds were run by a set of principle, laws, and values. And so this was the source of our Native culture. So it doesn't matter which community we're from, the earth taught us all how we're supposed to live in harmony with one another. So the Medicine Wheel, what it is that it is a way of bringing us back to those original teachings. So the Medicine Wheel 12 Steps, it tells us how do we come back to this culture. Because at one time we lived in harmony, and so what was taken away during the boarding school era was the spirituality, and so we now know what's key for us is to bring this spirituality back so that we can come back to have those thoughts the way that we used to think, or the way that our ancestors are. So how is it we do this? So with the guidance of the elders, we know for us, it's coming back to the culture, coming back to these principles, laws, and values of our ancestors. We know that this is the key for us to survive and make it in the future. So this Medicine Wheel 12 Steps is we took the 12 steps and we put them in 4 directions. Steps 1 to 3 in the east. So this is the direction that we find our relationship with the Creator. In steps 4, 5, and 6, this is the inventory steps. This is where we find ourselves, both our strength and our weaknesses. Step 7, 8, 9, which is the amends, where we go set right any harm that we caused, any hurt that we done. And this is where we establish our relationship with our relatives. and then steps 10, 11, and 12. So now we are back in harmony. So 10, 11, 12 helps us to maintain, you see, a way of life. And so when we take a look at the forest, the healing forest, then we made this medicine wheel 12 steps. We made one for men. So as the men get rid of their anger, guilt, shame, and fear, and you, in the process of the medicine wheel 12 steps, what you start to see is they return to the culture, the ceremonies, the spirituality, and to recovery. And so because men and women are different, we had to make a program for men, and then we also made a program for women. And so this is how you start a recovering community. There's a medicine wheel and 12 steps for men and for women. And so those of you who come here to do this, the fire starters, we call you recovery coaches. To be a good coach, it would be, one is if you recover yourself, one is if you're walking the red road, one if you got some experience with the 12 steps, and one is that if you would be willing to make a commitment a year at a time to lead these circles of recovery after you leave the training and you go back and you facilitate the video series in the communities to help those who are want to get into recovery and to get well. So this is what your job is when you go back home. You will work some with women, some with men, and what you'll do is to form these circles of recovery. And as the groups grow, the women and men that come together, that form that circle, and then what will happen sometimes is what you will see is one of them says, I can now lead a group. So out of that circle, you'll find somebody, they'll say, I'll lead a group. This program is not just for men and for women, but also for the men and women who are partnered with or married to alcoholics, which we call adult children of alcoholics. And so the medicine wheel in 12 steps is to help heal the adults that have been wounded as a result, you see, of alcoholism, and to start to form these circles of recovery at the grassroots movement. And so what you will see is it's a process that you will learn. When you go back, you'll be very confident to run these groups. If you have questions, there's a technical assistance center that you can call in here to get your questions answered. But it's important to know something we call the power of one. Let's just say one of the coaches, you just run your first group, it's got 10 people. If you run 4 groups a year, and then you take those 4 groups and then you run that for 4 years, you have now impacted the lives of 160 people. And that's how the whole well-variety movement works, is one person healing themselves and working with another person. So there's a medicine wheel 12 steps for men, there's one for women, and one for adult children of alcoholics. But what is important is if you will make this commitment, if you love the people enough, if you are willing to give 1 or 2 nights a week, that you are the ones who will show up to help these groups, then eventually what you start to see is the culture returns, our spirituality gets strong. You know, when you get into recovery, all of a sudden you become better parents, your parenting skills get better, you build your character, your grandbabies benefit, and you will see the effects of your work for 3 generations. Even the babies unborn will be raised different just because you help people get into recovery. And so the 7 generations is what we're trying to change. This current generation, if you are willing to help the people go through this, then what you'll see, the next generation will change. And we'll be able to come back to the traditional community, to where we are raising our young people differently. So this is your choices, the medicine wheel 12 steps choices. We can still do the training out in your communities if that works out to be better. You can attend the training at the Well-Variety Training Institute here in Colorado Springs. So to register or get further information, just look at the White Bison website or call and talk to any of our people here who are willing to help.